It's 6 a.m. Your alarm goes off. You know exactly what you need to do. Hit the gym, work on that project, study for the exam, build that business, but instead, you reach for your phone. Just 5 more minutes, just check the messages, just scroll a little. 2 hours later, you're still in bed. The day is already half gone. And the worst part? You knew this would happen. You've done this 1,000 times before. This is procrastination. And if Miyamoto Musashi were alive today, he would tell you something you don't want to hear. You're not lazy, you're dying, and you don't even know it. Musashi wrote something in his final days that most people misunderstand. Do not do anything useless. Simple words. But what he meant was devastating. Every moment you procrastinate, every hour you waste, every day you choose comfort over action, you are actively killing the person you could become. Musashi won 61 duels to the death. He started at age 13 and never lost. But here's what most people don't know. He wasn't naturally disciplined. He wasn't born with iron willpower. Early in his life, he struggled with the same thing you do, the gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it. But Musashi developed something that changed everything. Not a motivation technique, not a productivity hack, a brutal system that eliminated procrastination at its root. And today, you're going to learn this exact system. Because motivation is a lie, discipline is overrated. What Musashi discovered was something far more powerful: the destruction of dependency. Let me explain what that means. Right now, you depend on something to get started. You depend on feeling motivated. You depend on having energy. You depend on the conditions being perfect. You depend on inspiration striking. And as long as you depend on any of these things, you will always be weak. Musashi wrote, "Do not depend on a partial feeling. This is the first brutal truth you need to accept. Your feelings are irrelevant. Whether you feel like doing something or not has absolutely nothing to do with whether you should do it." The samurai who waited to feel brave before entering battle died in the first fight. The warrior who trained only when he felt energized never became skilled. And you, waiting to feel motivated before you act, will never accomplish anything meaningful. Most people approach procrastination backwards. They try to generate motivation first, then take action second. They watch motivational videos. They listen to pumped-up music. They imagine their future success, and sometimes it works. For about 2 days, then they're back to scrolling, back to avoiding, back to procrastinating. Musashi did the opposite. He took action first, and motivation followed. Not because he was special, but because he understood something fundamental about human nature. You don't feel like doing something because your body is conserving energy. Your brain sees no immediate threat, no immediate reward, so it says, why waste resources? This is biology. This is normal. This is also why you're stuck. But here's what changes everything. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a self-imposed rule. When Musashi made training non-negotiable, his brain eventually stopped questioning it. Just like your brain doesn't question whether you should breathe or whether your heart should beat, Musashi's brain stopped questioning whether he should train. He removed the decision entirely. This is the first principle of Musashi's system. Eliminate the choice. Stop negotiating with yourself every single morning about whether you'll work out. Stop debating whether today is the day you'll finally start that project. The negotiation itself is the procrastination. Every time you consider not doing something you know you should do, you're training yourself to fail. Musashi trained every single day for 30 years. Rain or shine, sick or healthy, motivated or not. He didn't decide each morning whether he felt like training. He just trained. The decision was made once, years ago, and never revisited. This is what he meant by, do not depend on a partial feeling. The feeling doesn't get a vote. So here's what you do. Pick one thing, not 10 things, not a complete life transformation. One single action that you know you need to do every day. For most people, this is physical training. For others, it's writing, studying, or working on a project. Whatever it is, you're going to make it non-negotiable starting today. But here's where most people fail even when they try this. They pick something too big. They say, I'm going to work out for 2 hours every day. Then they miss one day because they genuinely don't have 2 hours. And once they miss one day, the streak is broken, and they quit entirely. Musashi's approach was different. He didn't train for a specific amount of time. He trained until the task was complete. Some days, that meant hours of practice. Other days, it meant 10 minutes. But 0 days meant 0 practice. Never. No exceptions. No matter what. This is the second principle. Make it small enough that you can't fail, but require that you never miss. You're not committing to an hour at the gym. You're committing to putting on your gym clothes and doing one single rep. That's it. 1 push-up, 1 squat, 1 minute of exercise. Sounds stupid, right? Like it won't make a difference. But here's what happens. On the days you feel terrible, you do your 1 push-up and stop. Fine. The streak continues. Your brain learns that this action is non-negotiable regardless of conditions. But here's the magic. On most days, once you've done that 1 push-up, you'll do 5 more, then 10, then a full workout. Not because you forced yourself, but because starting is the only hard part. Musashi understood this deeply. The resistance isn't to the work itself. The resistance is to beginning. Once you're in motion, continuing is easy. It's the transition from stillness to movement that kills most people. So you make that transition as small as possible. You remove every excuse. You can always do 1 push-up. You can always write 1 sentence. You can always work for 1 minute. And by making it impossible to fail, you make it inevitable to succeed. But Musashi had a third principle that most people completely ignore. And this one is the most brutal. Cut what is useless, not reduce it, not limit it. Cut it completely. Musashi didn't just train every day. He also eliminated everything that interfered with training. He lived in caves. He owned almost nothing. He had no entertainment, no distractions, no comfort. This sounds extreme. And it was. But here's what he understood. Every comfort you allow yourself is a negotiation point. Every distraction available to you is an escape route. Every source of easy pleasure is training your brain to choose comfort over growth. You don't have to live in a cave, but you do have to cut the useless things. And you know what they are. Your phone scrolling, your Netflix binges, your social media addiction, your video games, your empty conversations, your time-wasting habits. These aren't relaxation. They're procrastination disguised as self-care. Musashi wrote, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain." But he also wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen." What he meant was this. The path of least resistance always looks like it's taking you somewhere. But if you observe carefully, you'll see it's a circle. You're moving, but going nowhere. Every time you choose to watch 1 more episode instead of working on your project, you feel like you're resting. But you're not. You're avoiding. And avoidance doesn't restore energy. It drains purpose. You end the day more tired than if you'd actually worked because you know deep down that you wasted another day. Here's how you apply this principle. Tonight, before you go to bed, you're going to do something uncomfortable. You're going to remove every easy escape route. Delete the social media apps from your phone. Cancel the streaming subscriptions. Unplug the gaming console. Put the TV remote somewhere inconvenient. Make procrastination harder than action. Most people try to rely on willpower. But willpower is finite. You wake up with a limited supply every day, and it depletes with every decision you make. By the time evening comes, your willpower is gone, and you default to whatever is easiest. Musashi understood this, so he didn't rely on willpower. He designed his environment so that the right action was easier than the wrong one. When training is the only option available, you train. When procrastination requires effort, you stop procrastinating. It's that simple. But let me tell you what happens when you actually implement this system. The first 3 days will be torture. Your brain will scream at you. It will tell you that 1 day off won't hurt. It will tell you that you're being too extreme. It will tell you that you deserve rest. And every single one of these thoughts is a lie designed to protect your comfort zone. Musashi called this the voice of death. Not physical death, spiritual death, the death of potential, the death of growth. Every time you listen to that voice, you become a smaller version of yourself. Every time you ignore it and act anyway, you become stronger. By day 7, something starts to shift. The action becomes slightly easier. Not because you suddenly feel motivated, but because your brain starts to accept that this is just what you do now. By day 21, it becomes automatic. By day 30, you can't imagine not doing it. By day 90, you're a different person entirely. I'm going to tell you about someone who proved this. Not Musashi. Someone modern. A software engineer named David. At 28 years old, David was stuck. He wanted to build his own startup. He had ideas. He had skills. But every day after work, he'd come home exhausted and do nothing. He'd tell himself he'd start tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into next week. Next week turned into next year. 3 years passed, and he'd made zero progress. Then David discovered Musashi's principles. And he did something radical. He committed to coding for his startup for just 5 minutes every single day. That's it. 5 minutes. No matter what. Even if he felt exhausted. Even if he had a terrible day. Even if he was sick. 5 minutes was non-negotiable. The first week, he only did 5 minutes most days. Sometimes he'd continue for 10 or 15 minutes, but usually he stopped at 5. But he never missed a day. The second week, he noticed something. Starting was becoming easier. By the third week, most days he'd work for 30 or 40 minutes because once he started, continuing felt natural. After 90 days, David had built the core of his product. After 6 months, he launched. After 1 year, he quit his job to run his startup full-time. The brutal truth? David wasted 3 years waiting to feel motivated. He could have had his startup 3 years earlier if he'd understood what Musashi knew. You don't need motivation. You need elimination of choice and reduction of friction. Now let me give you the exact implementation for 3 common areas where people procrastinate. First, physical training. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything else, you will put on workout clothes. Not as a goal, as a rule. Once you're in workout clothes, you will do 1 push-up. That's the requirement. 1 single push-up. Most days, you'll do more, but 1 is enough to maintain the streak. No missed days. Ever, for any reason. Second, work or studying. Before you open any entertainment, before you check social media, before you do anything fun, you will work on the most important task for 5 minutes. Set a timer. 5 minutes of focused work. No phone, no distractions. After 5 minutes, you can stop if you want, but you cannot skip it. This happens every single day, including weekends. No exceptions. Third, creative projects. Before bed, you will create something for 2 minutes, write 1 paragraph, draw 1 sketch, record 1 voice note, build 1 feature. Whatever your project is, you will make visible progress every day. 2 minutes is nothing. You can't fail to find 2 minutes, but you cannot go to bed without doing it. These 3 actions, implemented exactly as described, will transform your life in 90 days. Not because they're magic, but because they eliminate procrastination at the source. You're no longer negotiating. You're no longer depending on feelings. You're simply doing what warriors do, acting regardless of conditions. But I need to warn you about something. When you start this system, people around you will think you're extreme. They'll tell you you're being too hard on yourself. They'll say you need to relax, to enjoy life, to stop being so intense. And here's what you need to understand. These people are not your enemies, but they are not your allies either. They're comfortable in their mediocrity, and your transformation makes them uncomfortable. Musashi spent most of his life alone for this exact reason. Not because he was antisocial, but because commitment at this level isolates you from those who are not committed. When everyone around you is making excuses, and you stop making excuses, you become an outsider. Accept this. It's the price of becoming who you're meant to be. Musashi wrote one final thing that brings all of this together. Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men. What he meant is simple. You're not competing with other people. You're competing with the person you were yesterday. Every day you show up and do the work, regardless of how you feel, you win. Every day you procrastinate, you lose. And here's the devastating truth. When you procrastinate, You're not just losing today. You're losing all the compound effect of today. The workout you skip doesn't just cost you one workout. It costs you the strength you would have built, which would have made tomorrow's workout easier, which would have led to more strength, which would have changed your entire trajectory. The code you don't write today doesn't just cost you one day of progress. It costs you the learning from that code, which would have made tomorrow's code better, which would have accelerated your project, which would have changed your career. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's self-destruction in slow motion. And Musashi's advice isn't gentle or comfortable. It's brutal because the truth is brutal. You either act or you don't. There's no middle ground. There's no, I'll start when I feel ready. You will never feel ready. You will never feel motivated enough. You will never have perfect conditions. So you act anyway, not because you want to, but because you've decided that dependency on feelings is weakness, and you refuse to be weak. Starting tomorrow morning, you have a choice. You can continue to negotiate with yourself every day. You can continue to wait for motivation. You can continue to procrastinate. Or you can implement Musashi's system. Make one action non-negotiable. Make it small enough that you can't fail. Cut the escapes. And never miss a day. Musashi died at 62 in a cave, writing his final teachings. He had no money, no possessions, no family. But he had something most people will never have: complete mastery over himself. He never had to wonder if he'd wasted his life. He never had to live with regret. He knew exactly what he was capable of because he'd proven it every single day for 50 years. You're not Musashi. You don't need to live in a cave. But you do need to stop lying to yourself about tomorrow. Tomorrow is another word for never. Today is the only day you have. And procrastination is killing you one wasted day at a time. The brutal advice is this: stop waiting, start moving, and never stop again.